Faster, sharper, stickier. It's the 2024 Nissan Z NISMO. That stands for Nissan Motorsports, and this version is a lot quicker, it handles better, and it's got a lot of track focus upgrades to elevate the Z to an even faster type of sports car. But is it worth the higher price? A significantly higher price? Well, let's find out. Here we are testing another new Nissan Z, and yet you don't see them. Nissan sold 0 in 2022, its debut model year, and only 500 in the second quarter of this year. That's due to production problems in Japan that Nissan is still working out. But while they do, Nismo went to town, and I think it'll be worth your wait. Here's the important part: 20 more horsepower, 34 pound-feet of extra torque. Very healthy numbers for a rear-wheel drive sports car. And to get there, Nissan modified the electronic wastegate of the turbocharger so that it stays closed for a longer period of time. That allows the turbine to spin faster and provide more boost. There's improved cooling throughout, including a new engine oil cooler, and Nissan also adapted a very expensive technology from the GTR NISMO. Remember, that car costs about 200 grand. It's independent spark plug timing. That's pretty interesting. Now, as a result of all that, the fuel economy is the worst of any Z you can buy, but who cares? This is passion red tint coat. It's an expensive option on the Z NISMO, but it is gorgeous. And it's actually a different shade than all the NISMO red accents that are on the chin spoiler, on the doors, on the mirror, and the rear bumper. So you have to look closely. Not as much contrast on this car, but it is absolutely gorgeous. And in the front, a different nose. It's more rounded off, it's less upright. That's to allow for more aerodynamics. You got these canard wings on the side, which direct air upward and also down to help keep that nose down at higher speeds. It's also directing more air to the front. There's an engine oil cooler, that's an additional one. Everything's trying to get a little cooler because there's more heat coming out of this engine all the time. And bigger brakes, 15 inches with Akebono pads. They're properly large for a car like this. Different tires, Dunlop's SP Sport Max versus the Bridgestone Potenzas on the regular Z, and lighter Rays forged wheels. Those are lighter than the other Rays forged wheels that you'll find on the Z Performance because they're NISMO specific. Considering the new Z is based on the older Z in many ways, it looks very good, especially this katana blade, that's what Nissan calls it. It's darker trim than on the regular Z, which is brighter. It's kind of nice because it breaks up the car from here to the roof. You get a nice kind of triple color effect. And when you come back here, wider tires and also wider flares at all four corners to accommodate that extra aero everywhere in the car. A slightly taller spoiler, a completely redesigned rear bumper with just all sorts of other cool effects on there, including functional air ducts. I really like that. And otherwise, it just says NISMO. You know it's riding something special when you see that red O. Nissan really just has a very good-looking sports car, truly. Here's how you open the back hatch. You gotta go underneath the Nissan logo and then grab up here. Once you get used to it, there's a pretty wide and flat cargo floor. We fit all the camera gear for this video review today right in here. And yes, you do have some suspension intrusion, but this is a sports car and there's no rear seats, so this is all for luggage. Yeah, it's fast. The regular Z was already a pretty quick car. With this 9-speed automatic transmission, they've now quickened the upshifts and added a new driving mode, Sport Plus, which of course goes above Sport, and it's definitely a bit rougher, considering this is just a regular torque converter automatic. It's not a dual clutch, nothing extremely fancy at AMG or anything else. It's pretty good. This is the same gearbox that you'll get in a Nissan Frontier pickup. But in the Z, it actually does a good job. And they're adding a little extra burble there to that exhaust, which I especially like. It's definitely missing from the manual transmission version of the Z. Watch that review. Because the manual version does not sound like this, and the NISMO is just a hair louder. And louder is always better. Louder in a good way. I'm not talking about driving your tuned Nissan Z from 2003, not to shade that car, but driving it without resonators and a muffler. It doesn't sound very good. You have to tune an exhaust the right way. This could just be even slightly louder, but as it is, I am not complaining at all. What I love about the Z is that in some ways it feels very much like a straight line car because there's just so much pull and it just does not stop. It feels really light, even though the Nismo is actually slightly heavier. 100, maybe 200 pounds, somewhere in between there. But it doesn't feel like it at all. It just feels so lightweight. Especially when you just toss it into turns. My previous complaint with the Z was that the Bridgestone Potenza tires just were not grippy enough. I just felt the car slipped a little too much. Well, Nissan's went and thrown those out with the Nismo version, so these Dunlops are definitely stickier. Being slightly wider in the back helps, but it really is the tread pattern and the tire itself. This does help transform the Z. Now, of course, that's something that you could do with an existing Z, is just swap the tires out for these. That's really not too hard of a performance upgrade. But the rest of the car, that's where all the changes are. So the dampers on all four corners, they're not adaptive, but they are now larger. They're retuned. The spring rates are stiffer. The suspension bushings, the steering bushings, everything is stiffened. And there's more bracing all around the car that Nissan says increases the chassis rigidity by about 2.5%. That's not a big jump, but a little bit of that matters. All of this is so nice that, to be honest, I kind of wish this was the standard setup. It does ride just slightly firmer, just a hair. It's really not that compromised as I was thinking, given all of the suspension upgrades, because that can sometimes make a well-sorted sports car out for the worst, but not here. I would like slightly firmer pedal bite when I'm touching these brakes. I don't want them to be very grabby, but they just could bite a little harder. But still, I know the stopping power is there, and it's easy to modulate. This car is just really balanced. If you're thinking that the Z NISMO is going to transform the car, it doesn't. It's very subtle little tweaks that make what I thought was an already pretty good sports car into just something a little more of a sharper edge tool. I almost feel that perhaps there could be a little bit more power, maybe 450, something a little bit more than what the specs suggest right now. And I really would like the 6-speed manual, at least as a no-cost option, just like it is on all the other Z trims, because you can't get it on the Nismo. And of course, this is going to be the faster choice around a track. And on the back road, it's actually really good. It is satisfying using these paddle shifters, more so than the regular automatic Z that I've driven before. You can also watch that review. This is a good textbook sports car experience. It truly is. The fact is, there's just so many, at this point in time, other gas-powered rear-wheel drive sports cars that are doing this even more to the level of higher performance, like a BMW M2, for roughly the same price. So it's a little hard to justify the Nismo when we're approaching 70 grand. I never thought I'd see a Z cost that much. However, this sound, it is delightful. There is definitely more grip when accelerating than the regular Z Performance. So earlier versions of the Nissan Z, the NISMO version, had pretty poor front brakes. You can read about that if you do a Google search, but this one has the binders to really help you stop. These one-piece Recaro buckets, they are standard on the Nismo. They're very supportive. You got a mix of leather and Alcantara on here. They're fully manual and they're not easy to adjust, so you have to do it before you get in the car and shut the door. But once you do, it feels like you're ready to race. The Nismo adds some subtle red accents to an already simplified interior. There's a red 12 o'clock hash mark on the steering wheel, which also has Alcantara on the sides for extra grip, some red stitching, a red start-stop button, a red D mode button for the driving modes, and of course these seats. Otherwise, it's very simple and very analog in here. For anyone who wants to drift their Z NISMO, parking brake just like the gods intended. Everything else, yes, it is carryover from the last generation Z, which is pulling some parts from the previous generation Z. But that doesn't matter, it's simple, you get in, you just drive, you go. The Nismo does not give you any Nismo-specific apps, so you're not going to see any real-time data on this touchscreen. It does have wireless Apple CarPlay and all the usual features of Nissan's infotainment system, which definitely is aging. There's a newer system in the new Atiyeh EV. You can watch that review, but this Z doesn't really have any major technical highlights. The digital instrument panel is probably the best technical feature you can get. And in any mode, you can see all the driving information and the really important specs right at a glance. Z prices are up for 2024. The Sport is $42,210 and the Performance is $52,210. The Nismo is $64,990. With all options, mine was $68,680 with destination. That's more than 12 grand extra than the Z Performance and more than 24 grand over a base Z. Wow, that is more than the M2. That's Corvette money. That price would have bought you even two 370Zs from the last generation. It's just as expensive as the Supra 45th Anniversary Edition, which doesn't have the upgrades the Nismo has. And remember, the market really isn't all that big for a car like this. Is the Nismo worth the premium? I'd say maybe if you're a Nissan fan and you appreciate the fact that this is a factory special, limited edition, comes straight out of Japan like no other Z, and the Z itself is just difficult to find on the road and rare, that alone is very special. But that price premium does not buy a fundamentally superior car, because the regular Z Performance is already very good, and you could swap out the exhaust and add some better tires and a few other changes like that for a lot less money. However, fundamentally, at its core, the Z NISMO is a great sports car, no matter what anybody says, and even though the price is higher these days than it used to be, guess what? We're in times of inflation, and the fact that a gas, rear-wheel drive, very high horsepower V6 engine car is still here on American roads in the year 2023. We have to celebrate that. What do you think? For more details, check out the review at CarGurus.com, browse listings at CarGurus.com as well. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time.